Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today the topic is role of youth in education. By education, I mean an all-round drawing of the best in child and man in body, mind, and spirit, said Mahatma Gandhi. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, said Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the former president of India. The main hope of a nation lies in the proper education of its youth. Education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, morals, beliefs, and habits. Educational methods include teaching, training, storytelling, discussion, and direct research. Education frequently takes place under the guidance of educators. However, learners can also educate themselves. Education can take place in formal or informal settings, and any experience that has a formative effect on the way one thinks, feels, or acts may be considered educational. The methodology of teaching is called pedagogy. Education began in prehistory as adults trained the young in the knowledge and skills deemed necessary in their society. In pre-literate societies, this was achieved orally and through imitation. Storytelling passed knowledge, values, and skills from one generation to the next. As cultures began to extend their knowledge beyond skills that could be readily learned through imitation, formal education developed. Schools exist in Egypt at the time of Middle Kingdom. Plato founded the academy in Athens, the first institution of higher learning in Europe. The city of Alexandria in Egypt, established in 330 BCE, became the successor to Athens as the intellectual cradle of ancient Greece. There, the great library of Alexandria was built in 3rd century BCE. Education in ancient India has always been believed to be very disciplined and well organized, dating back to some time during 3rd century BC, when traditional and religious knowledge used to be the main subject of learning. Palm leaves and tree barks were the writing pads, and most of the teachings was oral by sages and scholars. Education in India became more relevant with the Gurukul system of learning that required students and teachers boarding together, passing on knowledge generations after generations. Religion, philosophy, warfare, medicine, astrology were the main subjects of teaching. Another unique aspect of this education was its free availability for all, but was allowed a voluntary contribution called Guru Dakshina, which could mostly be afforded by few well-to-do families at the end of the courses. The beginning of the first millennium and some years preceding saw the starting of universities like the Takshila University, Nalanda University, Vikramshila University, and Ujjain. Concrete subjects of study came into being like astronomy, grammar, logic, philosophy, literature, law, medicine, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Arthashastra, that is politics and economics, mathematics, and logic. Education in modern India started with the British era, and thus came the study of English language, which was given more emphasis than other language learning. The recent form of education in India was an idea proposed by Lord Macaulay in 20th century. The first Indian institutes of technology were established in 1950s to promote technical education in India. The National Education Policy 2020, NEP 2020, which was approved by the Union Cabinet of India on 29th July 2020, outlines the vision of India's new education system. The policy is a comprehensive framework for elementary education to higher education as well as vocational training in both rural and urban India. The policy aims to transform India's educational system. Youth are the most important and dynamic segment of the population in any country. It is believed that developing countries with large youth population could see tremendous growth provided they invest in young people's education, health, and protect and guarantee their rights. We can undoubtedly say that today's young are tomorrow's innovators, creators, builders, and leaders. But they need the required support in terms of good health, education, training, and opportunities to transform the future. The economic trigger happens when a country's more hands to work available than more mouths to feed. Today, India is one of the youngest nations in the world with more than 65% of its population consists of youths. Unfortunately, being a democratic nation and largest democracy in the world, India is still lagging behind in achieving socio-political and economic equalities which were dreamt by our predecessors. As a nation, since 72 years, we have been striving to eliminate these inequalities at all levels, which are existing in the forms of poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, corruption, violence, gender bias, etc. If India is to improve, then the Indian youth needs to take the charge and come forward to fight against multiple inequalities and contribute in nation building. India has the edge of demographic dividends. They have the power to change the nation. Young mind will be more fresh and innovative, which helps in the progress of the country. But adequate opportunities should be given to the youth to represent their ideas and policies for the upliftment of the nation. Knowledge and unity speaks a lot rather than experience. They have power to change. Education programs should aim to teach and young minds right from the school level the importance of choosing right people who would take charge of governance. The pivotal role of youth who are afresh with ideas will help in this movement towards a transparent civil society structure which can influence the political administration for the benefit of the society. Youth has all the potential. Let us all provide rational educational support to them so that they keep on growing in their knowledge and understanding and keep making a difference to the nation and to the world. Then they should be fully empowered to lead India into the future. And to discuss today's very, very important program, and that is on the topic that is the role of youth in education, we have 7 youth leaders. Also, we have the chief guest today, and he is Professor Dr. K. Sankaran. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran is the Director of Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management, NITTE. He is BTech Honours from IIT Kharagpur, PGDM from IIM Bangalore. He has done PhD from Kent State University, USA. He has several years of academic experience in India, US, UK, Middle East, and East Asia. He started his career with Tata's. He has several years of experience in management, consulting, and project management. Dr. Sankaran has widely published his articles in highly rated international journals such as Strategic Management Journal and Journal of Marketing Management and many others. Currently, he is researching in the area of higher education governance and andragogy. Welcome, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran on our show. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, you are such a educated, experienced, talented person. You doesn't require any introduction, but I have to give so that our viewers who are across the globe should know who you are. Now, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, as you know, today the education, this present government is also giving lots of emphasis on the education, and education is required, as we have seen in the case of Corona or COVID. when everyone was looking towards the medical fraternity. The medical fraternity succeeded in India at least because of their education. The scientists who have developed the vaccine, they also succeeded because of their education. So the importance of education is very much if we have to survive physically, mentally, economically. And for that, we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Professor Dr. K. Sankran, please.
It's always a delight and a privilege to be on your show. And this is a very, very interesting, useful topic, which is very close to my heart. And thank you so much for inviting me. And my pranams to you as well as the young friends here who have joined us today. I think I will start with the National Education Policy of 2020, which you just mentioned about. You've given me 15 minutes, so I think I'll spend about 4 to 5 minutes on NEP. This is a major document that has come out in our country after about 35 years. The last time we had a major rehaul of higher education, for that matter, education, I will be restricting myself to uh, higher education because that happens to be my area of profession and interest and research. I think this is a very major document that has come out, as I said, after 35 years. 85, we had a major shift in terms of bringing in the private education was introduced at that time. Um, and essentially, the idea was to have the private sector at that time to be partners in development. We're still, you know, struggling with ideas of equality, distributive justice, and all the fissures that we have in our society. And it's eminently right to expect of higher education and education in general to be working out these issues. And it's very important for us to take on this task of getting these areas addressed. Now, this requires all the stakeholders involved to come together. And what this particular national education policy of 2020 is essentially saying that at the very core, what it is asking us to do as a society is to unleash the creativity and innovative powers resident in youngsters so that they can partake in creating a better future for our country. Now, I'm going to talk about certain you know specifics in that so that we set an agenda, and I said I'll talk for another 2 or 3 minutes about this, and then we'll say what is it that we should be doing together with our students. As an educator, I'm saying this. Um, now uh, the structural changes, I'll start by talking about the structural changes because essentially this is a policy document, and I see it as kind of a directive principle because you only have about uh, 50 odd pages is this document. And before that, in 2019, we had a huge voluminous document coming out. Essentially, it's talking about certain structural reforms. Now, these structural reforms have to be preceded by certain idealisms, and this document is talking about those kind of the objectives or the vision and broad structural changes that could be brought about. Now, the document talks about both at the school and college level what can be done. Very briefly, at the schools level, the way schools are going to be organized is going to be completely different. For instance, you have the first 5 years starting almost at the age of 2 or 3 and going up to the second standard for a duration about 5 years. That is almost when our children are at the age of 7, is that phase. um, During that time, it's going to be preparatory, and there's going to be actually no conceptualizations. It's essentially about experiential learning. uh, Actually, Indian education has been suffering from excessive importance on concepts early in the game, when students are still playful, and it's not exactly right for children to be burdened with conceptualization. It's more perceptive learning. It's more about actually experiencing things. So at that time, when we talk about language, language is the ultimate you know symbolic language as such. These are really the higher levels of learning by human beings. We take them for granted as adults, but as children, these are extremely difficult. So if you ask them to write, like B, they might write like this, in an opposite way, for instance, because the brain is still developing. So there's a lot of work in these areas that have been done by neuroscientists and developmental psychologists and so on. So based on all this, we are saying that there's going to be a different way to teach people. So preparatory stage, then there's a foundation stage, there's a middle stage, high stage. So essentially understanding how children actually learn. So it's essentially, we are saying that we should be really worried about how they learn, and we should be really concerned about the stakeholder. I don't want to say customer. Students are never customers, they're acolytes, especially at the you know at the university level. So being sensitive to their actually situation, their being, the way they develop is very important. So I've been a critic of higher education governance the last 7 to 8 years, and when this particular document came, I was really so you know I felt this deep sense of uh, what should I say, consonance with this document, because of the kind of things that have been said in these things. Now, this is a policy document. It's a vision document. Now, for this to be actually translated, it requires every one of us. I think educators are going to play a major role. Of course, regulators are there. In some ways, regulators are giving the freedoms to the educators, and educators and parents will have to really work out these things very well. Now, coming to the higher education sector. In the higher education sector, what we are going to have is essentially going to be about introduction of humanities subjects. Very clearly, there is going to be emphasis on humanities, not as an alternative to science subjects, but as as an appreciation in terms of asking why questions. Why questions are always answered by you know humanities, while how is going to be science and technology. So it's very important for us to generate the questions. It's well established by great educators, great writers, thinkers in education, that humanities have a different approach than science. So that's why you have humanities and arts, and you have things like creativity, aesthetics. Those things are extremely important to answer questions of how things can be done. Well, science is eminently suited for that. So our emphasis in the last 70 years has been on the how of things, and we have given a lot of importance to professions such as you mentioned, about medicine, engineering, management, law. Uh, these are essentially kind of, they border. Some of them are pure professions, some of them border on professions. Well, now what it is said is, well, for professions to thrive at the age of 17 or 18, 16, 17, 18, we need to have our students, our children, really getting exposed to a wide variety of different things. And as I would put it, not burden them with this idea about, you know, be very useful to society on day one. So between the age of, let's say, 17 to 21 is the time when they try out different things and kind of become a young adult, when they will really start understanding what is it that they are really good at. How do they start understanding about this panorama of knowledge areas where they could possibly specialize and become good at. Only at the master's level should we really be go for great specialization. But by then they have this ability to learn things themselves, so that it's not about spoon feeding anymore. There's no spoon feeding at all at any stage for that matter. But then there is this. So they're talking about all kinds of different possibilities in terms of having different subjects available. So a person can take music, he or she can take mathematics, he or she can uh, talk about jurisprudence, all these different subjects, quantitative subjects. It may be coding, it could be anything, it could be computer science. But then the person could have all these different things available to the person, and the person starts making a decision. This is very important, as as I talk to a lot of our own colleagues, all our friends and people at different ages, we find many of them just drift somewhere by the age of 40. They kind of figure out what they want. That happened to me also. It took me a long time before I figured out that it's education that I wanted. I had to be on myself. For 4 years, I was an entrepreneur. I was in project management. I was in consulting. So it took a long time before really saying that this is what I want to really do. Now, this is a lot of, loss of human power and intention and good sense, actually. So there's going to be 4-year programs, no MPhil. That's going to be, world over. MPhil has gone off. So from straight away from masters, one can do a PhD program. The whole idea of affiliation, which is the hallmark of our education system, introduced by, as Mr. Goel talked about, it essentially came from Macaulay's as education system, the British education system. That's going to go. Essentially, affiliation is saying that the university knows what should be done at the college level rather than have autonomy for the colleges. So there's going to be more autonomy, and there's going to be a national research foundation which will make sure that this whole idea of knowledge keepers in society. I'm using this word. This word is not used in this document. Knowledge keepers indeed have a role to play in the affairs of the country in terms of seeing further ahead, and that's the original idea of Vishwavidyalaya, the transdisciplinary space that you have where students come and discover themselves. And it's not about just information, it's about really wisdom, knowledge and wisdom. So this is a national education policy. So it's a wonderful document, and I think it can be used it can be very eminently used as a directive principles and kind of touch them where we need. But then it doesn't talk about regulation. Essentially, it's a movement from regulations to governance, where the stakeholders have to actually figure out what they really want to do themselves. Now, I will say, with due respects to all our friends here, okay, I've seen the names. Ashma is here, Bonme is here, Jyoti, Kushi, Pranam, and Manoj. Really, really happy to talk to you guys.
One more is there. She is Nidhi Shetty.
Oh, Nidhi. Okay, thank you, thank you. Her name is yeah. Come up. You mentioned 7. Yes. So Nidhi also, not last but not the least. Remember that. So now the purpose, yeah. So what I was thinking is, I would say, what is it that youngsters can do, and maybe you can also say how you can help us do these things, and achieve the kind of thing that we are talking about. Essentially, we are talking about positive sum games where students achieve what they want to do and achieve better things in life, as well as contribute to whatever we are talking about. That applies to us also as educators. Now, to be as a student, what is it that you could possibly do, and what is it that I think, after having seen probably thousands of students, I'm really fortunate to have been mentoring and being partners in education with thousands of students actually. I think the first thing is partners in the process of higher learning. It's We want to instill, and we want to be partners in students developing the ability to ask questions, the courage to ask questions, develop curiosity, and to express the curiosity openly without fear, be critical thinkers, and have ultimately the locus of control in oneself while deeply respecting the context or environment in which they are, that is, others. So, this is something which is resident in NEP. All that I'm talking is what the NEP asks us to do, asks the society to do. As partners in development of the student themselves, as knowledge partners, showing character and accommodating diverse viewpoints, and while respecting diversity, also have autonomy for knowing what is right for themselves. That ties up with the idea of dharma, actually. Mr. Goel talked about Indian knowledge system. So ultimately, it's very difficult. It's impossible for somebody else to do exactly what I should do. I should know what my role is, because the complexity of my role with multiple agents. I have students for me. I have my colleagues for me. I have my family. I have society. So it's extremely important for me to figure out how to do it myself. Nobody can tell me that. So that autonomy is very important. When we have that, we know exactly how to negotiate, and others will buy in by and large if you do it, peacefully. And we need to have, change, challenge the status quo for this the social environment. And students should be seeking careers. All of us should be seeking careers rather than jobs, for that matter. And entrepreneurship is extremely important here, which includes also entrepreneurship in an organization, how to be really effective and deliver rather than simply be uh, a kind of a, I tell my students, be yours obediently. We want to be people, yours entrepreneurially is what, we should really be having. Partnership in building community, being able to uh, do all the above in a manner that is socially acceptable, and be able to communicate. We are entering very complex environment these days. We have to negotiate the social space. We have the social media. We have different kinds of exams to be attempted. There are some from the school, college, and we have different kinds of exams to be uh, negotiated at the professional level. So, how do we handle this complexity and harmonize different viewpoints and people with diverse and opposing interests? So, how do we do that? So, it's not about being ideological. We are constantly finding trouble that leaders have because they stick to ideologies rather than higher order principles. So, to touch base with these higher order principles and issue for those principles in terms of actions is fairly a complex thing, and that's what the academy is for. That's what we are here to do, not to have you regurgitate the textbooks, for instance. Now, the pedagogy or the andragogy, adult learning andragogy, they made a slight distinction. Is really, or the pedagogy traditionally is about, how do we achieve these? What are the means that we have in the academy to achieve this? So we have to discredit rote memory. It has to go. The kind of examinations we have in terms of, a distrust that is there in terms of, you know people marking papers, for instance, that has to go. I mean, these are issues that as educators we have to figure these things out ourselves. It's not for the students, but then we need buy-in from students also on these things. um, Emphasis on problem identification along with problem solution, and also opportunity spotting. It's not that you need to have a problem to be action oriented. We need to be action oriented because there are so many opportunities in terms of developing ourselves, in terms of, developing society, in terms of developing other people, in terms of creating positive some games for other people. There's an enormous amount of opportunity. So, so issues would be problem identification as well as opportunity spotting. A greater role for humanities and sciences, not at the cost of science, but at the how science can be actually bettered. How can science be enhanced through asking deeper questions for which we require help from humanities? You'll find that all the great scientists are deep humanists themselves, so humanities. And professional courses will continue to be important, but these professional courses will have to be infused with a questioning mind. So that's why now they're saying this NEP talks about separating the conduct of professionals from education. Conduct would be like an accountant. There are some certain things that he or she has to follow, but the education has to question what's happening. So traditionally, even as a practitioner, I would say it's convenient to continue with the same thing. So somebody else has to sometimes ask a question and put us on the spot. So even that is being handled by NEP. So NEP is a very, very interesting document which is thought through this thing very carefully. Instead of saying that, okay, a professional, if I'm a manager, I can teach management best. That need not be necessarily right. I have to have also be asked questions by outside as to what are you guys doing? Okay, are you perpetrating the existing status quo? So that is the higher order value that academia brings in. And I think one culture that understands this beautifully is the Indian culture, because we give always importance to questioning. So we have in the in Kathopanishad such a wonderful story. Nachiketas asking his father, "You sacrificed everything. You sacrificed all the cows, the goats, and all these animals for you know the seers in society. But why are you not sacrificing me? You said I am the most favorite of yours. You know what greater story do we need to have to tell ourselves we are the greatest, we as a part of humanity, as that we have the wherewithal to ask questions. And I think we are not doing that in the last 250 years for sure.
Uh,
So questioning will automatically mean
uh,
a research orientation at all levels, because research doesn't mean dry, following somebody else, all this literature research and all that, but it means questioning, questioning, questioning. So I will stop here, but last by saying that two things. One is evaluation. Evaluation has to move for something very different. That's also handled by NEP. As a principle, it's given, but as academics and students, we have to kind of change the way things are happening. And employers and parents are important stakeholders here. They also need to be taken into confidence and change created. So this is a very big thing, and education is the most complex of all sectors. I've worked in very many sectors, and I can say education is the most complex of all sectors, because we don't even know who the right stakeholders. With that, I will just stop here, and
Okay.
thank you for the
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, for giving your views about the education, and especially when you are talking about the new education or national education policy 2020, and you have highlighted how the national education policy, a new document which is going to be the game changer for the education policy in India. That is a very, very important point which you have raised. And you said now the young minds or youth will definitely be beneficial because of the changes induced in this particular policy. And that is only possible if youth will take initiative, if youth take participation. And you have highlighted few of the things, like you have mentioned that now there is no MPhil, one can go directly do the PhD once he will complete his graduation. So all these things are there in the new education policy, but we have to see how the youth is going to adopt this education policy and how the youth will play a very, very important role. Now, I would like to invite my youth guest, and my first youth guest is, before that, thank you very much, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, for very
thank
much
you.
enlightening, motivational things which you have mentioned today. I'm sure our youths who are participating and who are watching are going to be very much motivated, inspired by your very inspirational views. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite my first youth guest, and she is Miss Ashna Muhammad Ali. Miss Ashna Muhammad Ali, you have heard what our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, has mentioned. Now, we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Miss Ashna Muhammad Ali.
Mr. Sangran sir, your words were really enriching and so valuable for me as a student. Good morning, Professor Dr. K. Shankaran, Mr. Lal Goel, and my fellow youth guests. Thank you for giving me such a good opportunity. Myself, Ashna Muhammad Ali, and I'm a final year postgraduate student in language and literature in Al Azhar College of Arts and Science, Thodupuzha. What is education? There are many definitions for education, and I love to express education as the wise, hopeful, and respectful cultivation of learning undertaken in the belief that all should have the chance to share in life. In the ancient and medieval times, youth is a frustrating time in life for its attempts to find some sense of identity and independence. And the scriptures looked in time both of danger and challenge. Giving the youth the empowerment, giving the youth the empowerment with an extraordinary amount of spaces for participation holds a nation's success. Being a youth is good. However, empowering the youth is better, where everyone is encouraged and assisted to reach a successful life. The success of a youth's life will be invested in everybody's function. The importance of youth empowerment will evidently be seen the development of poverty eradication measures, good education standard, good governance, crime reduction, national growth, security, and technological empowerment. The role of youth empowerment in eradicating poverty is through when the youth sector is financially empowered with ways of good education standard or skills empowered to be able to sustain himself and his household. I believe that Developing countries with large population like India could see tremendous growth provided they invest in young people's education and health. And I can undoubtedly say that today's young are tomorrow's innovators, creators, builders, and leaders. I repeat, I can undoubtedly say that today's young, our youth, are tomorrow's innovators, creators, builders, and the leaders. And to transform the future, the young need the required support in terms of good health and good education, training, and also many opportunities because our India is still a developing country. Youth can do more for the betterment of the country, can quench the thirst for realizing their potentialities, and also the youth stand out with the employability skills like communication, teamwork, problem solving, initiative and enterprise, planning and organizing, and self-management. Next, I wish to talk upon brain drain. Brain drain is the migration of skilled human resources for trade, education, and better life. Trained health professionals are needed in every part of the world. That's a true fact. However, better standards of living and quality of life, high salaries, access to advanced technology, and more stable political conditions in the developed countries attract talent from less developed areas. So this is a major point that we have to focus on. And the majority of migration is from developing to developed countries, and these migrants are mainly youth, and this is a fact. Why don't they provide themselves as brain drain for their own country? And so India will be transformed from a developing to a developed country, and then their contribution to education, thus an investment in their own nation for a better and good future.
Okay.
And also, there's a big gap, a disconnection with the youth empowerment with the case of decision making. Even though we are the 21st century, nothing has changed. Everything is traditional, syllabus making, policy making, and several other things. There is no appearance of the youth in these areas and thus lacks development of education. Youth must get a chance in these areas to show their capabilities. Next, to the bridging the digital divide, engaging youth people in programs that use information communication technology to promote civic participation and social connectedness from the youth side. And this brings out a new era for our education, the real role of youth in education. I would like to conclude my words with: you are the architect of your own destiny. You are the master of your own fate. You are behind the steering wheel of your life. There are no limitations to what you can do, have, or be, except the limitations you place on yourself by your own thinking. I hope, including
Okay.
me as an architect of youth, will be will be a betterment to build a good education for our developing India. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ashna, for giving your views. And as you have mentioned about the brain drain, if you, as our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran emphasized about the new education policy, in that it is very, very clear that more and more high-tech universities will be developed. Even the new educational policy or the National Education Policy 2020 allowed the top foreign universities to open their universities or the campus here in India. So then definitely those who are going for the higher education, they will be getting the education in India only. But the thing will be after the education, once you are trained or once you are educated, whether you would like to serve India or whether you would like to go abroad, that is a point where we have to see how much job opportunities, what is the infrastructure. If everything is fine, nobody would like to go abroad. And especially after the COVID has shown one thing very clearly, that even from the metro cities, the people have gone back to their native places because they know where their own people are there, they would like to be there. Thank you very much, Ms. Asna Mohammad Ali, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next youth guest, and she's Ms. Bonmi T. Sangma. Ms. Sangma, please unmute yourself. Ms. Sangma, you have heard our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, as well as our earlier youth guest. And we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Ms. Bonmi T. Sangma, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity, and I'm glad to introduce myself to it. I'm Bonmeti Sangma, student from Loyola College, William Nagar, Meghalaya. I am currently pursuing Bachelor's of Arts in History. My view on role of youth in education will be, as a youth, we should have determination to give awareness regarding the value of education, encourage and help all those who were not going to the schools. As a youth, we can participate in various programs and seminars and share our views relating the issues that people are suffering. They also participate in debate and can argue for the better solution. As a youth, we can also reach out to the areas which is backward and can contribute by organizing various programs or write articles or books. By educating ourselves, we can make the society change and bring the change in the society and remove superstitious beliefs from the society, or we can stop the child labor, or we can improve the lifestyle of the people. We all know that youth are the backbone of the society, and youth has a very important role to play in society, so they can change the future of the society with their well-being. With this, I would like to end up my speech. Thank you.
Sangma emphasized that the youth is the backbone of the society. And yes, if youth play an important role, everything can be changed, including the upliftment of the society. And we can be making a very good atmosphere where the people would not like to go abroad for higher education or for working if youth will be active. Thank you very much, Ms. Sangma, for giving your views. Now I would like to go for my next youth guest, and she is Ms. Jyoti Lala Konala. Ms. Jyoti Lala Konala, please unmute yourself. You have heard our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran. You have heard earlier youth guest. Now, please tell us a bit about the role of youth in education. Please introduce yourself and speak. Ms. Jyoti Lala Konala, please.
My name is Jyoti Lala Konala, and I'm doing my bachelor final year in Bachelor in Social Work in School of Social Work, Roshni Nilaya in Mangalore. Okay, so I would like to start my topic based on a quote said by Enon. Want to build a humanity, go to students. Want to destroy it, there again, go to students. Student world is a very different world, a world in its own adventurous life, full of energy, newness, creativity, and at the same time, opposite of all these are also tragically and equally true on it. More often we should see students and youth going to colleges and schools, but we rather see them on streets looking for job, searching for new opportunities, but this is also called like unemployed youth. Okay, so students are joining, and they are joining youth movements, and student movements are coming up, so that we try to find our own platform to express ourselves. So I want to say about the role of youth over here. Role of youth is simple. It is to renew, refresh, and maintain. Renew means try to bring new creativity, try to do something new, be innovative. Refresh is the same as renewing and maintaining the same old culture, but in a very new perspective. So, as the previous youth guest said, the youth is the backbone of any nation. It's true. Youth can do anything. It's very powerful. So youth can play an important role in the development of the society. So I'll say another quote said by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our late former president of India. While children are struggling to be unique, the world around them is trying all means to make them look like everybody else. So in my opinion, I feel that people are trying to compare, the society is trying to compare the youth with another person, like be like them, do this, do that. But it's not like giving us the opportunity to express our own uniqueness in the platform. So I would like to say that, that we need an opportunity, like a new national education policy have also come up with this policy where the schools have to have some curriculum, like subjects which is outside of the studies, like art, culture, then cooking, like this. So sports, but we don't see the other side where some students don't know how to play sports, some students don't know how to cook. So what will they do? So I've been talking to my friend last night, so he was expressing himself about this, like what would the other students feel when they don't know how to cook, they don't know how to do any other curriculum activities. So it's like we want to stand up for ourselves, and we need an opportunity where we try to express ourselves. So that's why we have student council in our college, and so that we can express ourselves, express what we feel about this educational system. So I would like to end my topic on, again, a quote which will encourage the youth. I want to encourage the youth that says, APJ Abdul Kalam says, my message, especially to young people, is to have courage to think differently, courage to invent, to travel the unexplored paths, courage to discover the impossible, and to conquer the problems and succeed only if we are given the opportunity to do so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jyoti. And Ms. Jyoti, you have rightly said that the youth are very creative. But you also mentioned that they would like to do something, but they have been compared, or they were not allowed, or they were not knowing what is to be done when they want to do cooking, or they are not knowing cooking, etc. If you, like our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran has mentioned about the new education policy, or the National Education Policy 2020, in that the basic concept is, earlier it was what to think. Now the policy says how to think. So it is up to you people, how to think. Whatsoever you are thinking, how you are going to think, that you have to decide. It is not, nobody is going to force that you have to think this, but now you have to decide how do you have to think. So I'm sure that once this new education policy will be applicable now in this from this year, definitely the reservations which we have raised will be solved. Thank you very much, Ms. Jyoti, for giving your views. Now I would like to go to my next youth guest, and she is Miss Khushi Jindal. Miss Khushi Jindal, you have heard our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, as well as earlier youth guest. Now we would like to know you from you, the role of youth in education. Ms. Khushi Jindal, please introduce yourself and then you speak.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Khushi Jindal. I'm a BCom graduate, and currently I'm pursuing MBA from KIT Group of Institutions, Ghaziabad. It's an honor for me to speak today in front of our chief guest and the chief editor. The topic which I'm going to express in my views is the role of youth in education. Someone has rightly said Give me the youth, and I will change the nation. And as our chief editor also mentioned, we, the youth of the nation, are tomorrow's educators, innovators, creators, builders, and leaders. Youth is said to be the power of country. And when we talk about education, education is that power which develops the country's economy and society. So just think, what if these two powers get merged? What milestone they can set for the nation's development? We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for our future. Now the question is, how the youth can give it into the education? Well, it's pretty simple. First of all, the education program of our country should aim to orient the young minds in such a way that they consider it as their responsibility to set the education standards of the country high. Empowering youth to join teaching profession will go a long way to improve the quality of education, promote inclusion, and to ensure equity in the education, particularly in the unprivileged communities. For an example, nowadays we see many youngsters working with NGOs, which work for educating people, especially the unprivileged section. Isn't it appreciable? We can take another example, the young entrepreneurs who are coming up with their innovative business ideas in the education industry, which is education industry is going to undoubtedly going to benefit a lot to our coming generation in terms of education. Young people today have the capacity and the willingness to encourage in many different ways. It is not enough to give them a seat at the table, but rather to engage them in a continuous and relevant manner. Young people play an important role in creating an agile, sustainable, and lifelong education system, which fulfills the need for the future. The success of every society is dependent on its ability to maintain the educated populace over the time. Therefore, we need the connection and experience of young people to recreate the educational experiences to meet the demand of today and the future. Although, as a youngster, I feel an interesting way to transform the education is educating the learner through creative learning methods. It is important to engage them in experiential learning activities, such as by using games, simulations, role plays, and storytelling, so that those who may feel excluded may feel motivated to participate in the learning process. Finally, I would like to conclude it by saying, if we want to provide the sustainable solution to the education in this rapidly changing world, we need to leverage on youth-led solutions and assistive technologies that will transform the learning environment for every child. As we say, youth is a power, the big power. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khushi Jindal, for giving your views. Yes, you are right. The youth is a very big power. And the youth, if they want, they can change anything. As you know, then in India, we have 65% population belongs to youth. And if youth decide to do something, even in the field of education, they can. Although the government or the educators, their scope is limited. They can give you the education whatsoever is there, but it is depends on the youth how they are going to take that education, take the advantages of the education, whether it's a technical education or vocational whatsoever. If you are going to take the advantage, then it is beneficial. I would just like to add one thing. In India, we have only 2.3 skilled youth, while in other countries, it is far more. Like South Korea, it is 96%. Germany and etc. Germany is about between 70 to 80%. So until unless youth will not come forward, there are so many ITIs, so many IITs, so many polytechnics, engineering college, medical college, everything is there in India. But the youth has to take the technical know-how, and then only we will be able to give that what we require. Thank you very much, Ms. Khushi Jindal, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, youth guest, and she is Miss Nidhi Shetty. Miss Nidhi Shetty You have heard our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, as well as other earlier youth guests. Now, we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Miss Nidhi Shetty, please.
I'm Nidhi Shetty from Mangalore, currently pursuing my post-graduation in the field of commerce from Mangalore University. Thank you, sir, for giving this opportunity to keep my viewpoint on this topic. So I would like to start from the education. Education develops the country's economy and society. Therefore, it is the milestone of a nation's development. Education is very important for the individual success in life. So education provides knowledge and skills to the population as well as shaping the personality of the youth of the nation. The youth are the most important and dynamic segments of the population in any country. Youth has very important role to play in the shaping of the next generation. So in India, now we have 62% of the youth population. So it is a huge population. The purpose of education is to impact knowledge. Knowledge need not be limited to teaching at schools or college. Knowledge can be anything. Guiding people to move in right path is also a knowledge. So as being a youth, you should also have some social responsibility. You should work towards it. Education should not be done just for the purpose of getting job. Nowadays, people only think that good education is required only to get a job in higher companies. No, it is not like that. In olden days, we used to get education from schools, colleges, books, but now we have more variety, like wide range of options. Like we get information from social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google, everything. First and foremost, the responsibility of youth is to educate themselves, because as per we have seen in pandemics, like the people who are highly educated also have gone through a lot of depression. So they have to educate themselves in a proper manner to face such problems. So in this current scenario, we have the power of taking people in the right direction. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. For example, now we can see young influencers, motivational speakers who motivate and educate people with their videos. One video of them, like they get a lack of views on that. So it means that they can change the people of, like they can change the mindset of the people. They can take them to a right path. It means like one good video can make or break a people. So while creating a content or while we are speaking, we have to see that we are creating a good content. It is up to you how you guide people with the good content. To educate people, you should not have a great amount of knowledge. You can also educate people with a little amount of knowledge which you have in a particular field. Like people are interested in so many skills that you can knowledge, like educate them, like telling them like this is good. Even that is kind of education. Only giving knowledge about the particular subject, that is not needed. Like it is not only up to that. You can educate them in every single thing. Nowadays, we can see many students are the victims of bad habits. As we as a youth can change them by giving them right amount of knowledge. It is our duty to change them and to bring them in the right path. Guiding people to use a right apps is also education. Youth is not only a partner of today, but also the leader of tomorrow. So it is our duty how we take it and how we provide information in the right direction. We see youth using much social media nowadays. So we can use social media as a right platform to educate people in different ways. This is the era of technology where access to information had never been so easy. Even we have seen youth as a civil servant, they go to schools and colleges just to educate people. Even that is possible. Even that is education. So I conclude by saying that this is why we call education is not a narrow concept. Education is not limited up to studies. It can be anything. And education is important in the guidance of human life. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nidhi Shetty, for giving your views. And as you mentioned about the social media and educating yourself, yes, if you are educating yourself, as you said, It's very correct. The only thing is the meaning of education, as you also mentioned, that not only for the job, but to become a good human being. If you become a good human being, then everything will come for you, whether it's a job or position in the society. So be a good human being and use the social media in a positive way. If you are using in a positive way, yes, one can build the society in a very great way. Thank you very much, Ms. Nidhi Shetty, for giving your views. Now I would like to go to my next youth guest, and he is Mr. Pranam Shetty. Mr. Shetty, please unmute yourself. You have heard our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, as well as earlier youth guest. Now we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Mr. Pranam Shetty, please.
Pranam Shetty. I'm pursuing my bachelor's in business administration. Currently, it's the first year. So, yes.
From which institution?
From Swastika National School.
Where? From in which city?
It is in Mangalore. And I'm also working as a part-time employee in Swastika Digital Marketing. So, now the role of youth in education. Of course, I certainly wonder when such topics are given, since youth and education are never two different entities. They are always a single entity. Education for me is not just a regular process that is from the LKG down to the post-graduation or doctorate degrees. This for me is just literacy. Education is not certainly this. It is much more than this. According to me, education is a way of life. It should improve both in terms of money and values of life. Education should first mean ways and means of life. It should make a quality way of life. It should not help us and make us comfortable individually, but it should also help our surroundings or our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues to lead a happy life. So, youth and his contribution towards the same comes into picture. If everyone leads a life in such a way which makes himself live a quality life and at the same time help others to lead a happy life, it should be more than enough. Therefore, education should give prominence to the true ways and means to lead a life. In other words, me leading a life not only should be helpful and comfortable for myself, but also at least to the general public or the people of the society. First and foremost, it should not be a selfish life. After all, how can a man eat, digest, enjoy, and then forget what he has eaten? Yes, if my education doesn't help to improve the quality of life, what good is my education? Man basically is dependent on each and everyone for something or the other throughout his life. So let us understand, when I need something or someone's hard efforts or struggles are behind it, I too should see that the people who are near and dear ones are comfortable together with me. If each and everyone understands this concept and work together towards the same, the world will be a much wonderful place to live in. First of all, let us just give it a thought. Why does world fear a lot? The answer is education itself. It is because only when you're qualified and you are knowledgeable, you are ready to face people. You're ready to face the questions. Okay, it's quite shocking when I say that well-educated and highly qualified turn down to terrorism. If knowledge couldn't change their attitude or belief, then what good it has done then? If education has not taught the habit of loving and sharing, what good has it either? Therefore, the youth certainly need to give a hard thought on this topic. If education tries to truly improve the quality of life, then it is a proper education. Today's youth should certainly take care of this concept. Education should be one of proper choice, interest, and love. It should not be a forcible one. Then only there will be a dedication towards that education. Education should be filled with purpose towards life to improve its quality and service, or else it will be a useless one. You see doctors involved in terrorism or such illegal activities. Now tell me, where is the education taking us? Hence, the youth, while gaining education, should also inculcate moral values with it. The doctor, while earning, should also have high moral values of service and dedication. Only then comes the true role of education. So let me be very clear in my thoughts. Youth's role in education should be good to self and humanity. Education should make this youth useful, productive, and helpful to the society. Education should improve the quality of life, self, as well as the general. But let us not forget, all the above arguments are not just to make the youth become literate, then call himself educated, earn his living, and live a better, comfortable life. No, but the idea of education is such that live and let live. Then this world will certainly be a better place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shetty, for giving your views. Live and let live. And you have mentioned about the medical fraternity, the doctors. I think we all have to salute our doctors in India, at least, or rather the world, that without fearing about the COVID, they were doing the job day and night. Not only the doctors, the nurses, the ward boys, the everyone, even the sanitation staff, the police, and they have shown the path to us that yes, this is the real education. What you have mentioned is right. The real education means when you are serving to the humanity. It is not that you have taken a degree and then you are just for yourself. You have to serve the humanity. And that's what we have seen in this COVID. And I'm sure this COVID time has given a very good lesson to all the youths, to everyone, but especially to a youth. And they will now think twice for doing something which you have mentioned about the terrorism, etc. Because they also know that terrorism is not the right choice. The thing is how to serve the humanity. And once you serve the humanity, the pursuit to happiness will come to you, and then you will feel that yes, you are really educated. Thank you very much, Mr. Pranam Shetty, for giving your views. Now I'm going to our last guest, and he is Mr. Pravanje Manoj Rao. Mr. P. Manoj Rao, you have heard of our chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankran, as well as you have heard all our earlier youth guests. Now, we would like to know from you the role of youth in education. Please introduce yourself and please speak.
Myself, Pavanji Manoj Rao, and I'm currently pursuing my final year engineering in electronics and communication department from Sayadri College of Engineering and Management in Mangalore itself. So, to begin with, while being youths, we are at the center of absolute strength, maybe. We have heard people telling that youth are useless, but that's not true. Youths are useless. So that's the main point coming up in the whole world as of now. Give them opportunities, give them the right path, and they'll come up with a huge round of applause and success in their lives for sure. So, in my opinion, people without education are like weapons without bullets. So, right after our birth, we have in one or the other way exaggeration to think of education, and maybe like we can put it up in one way as to like once we are into this field of education, maybe. So we are into one point of life where we start molding ourselves. So we just become a different person from what we were earlier or what we are going to be. So that's what we will be once we attain the concept of education, maybe. So to begin with, I would like to put up four main points as to what's the role of youth in this particular field of education. So to begin with, education is a factor of change in one's life. Isn't it true? I guess it is true in case of all the young chief guests present here, as well as the whole world of youth maybe. So once you enter the field of education, however, and like whatever particular thing or whatever particular behaviors you used to have, it will totally change. So we as youths, once we enter the field of education, maybe. So the main thing is it's an asset to ourselves. Like we create, we mold ourselves, we become a different person, and then ultimately get into the field or into such a position where we can define ourselves as to who exactly we are. Right. So maybe going with the second point now, education as the path leader of the youth. So education is the path leader of the youth. Right. So once you are into the field of education, it is with the help of education that the youth can choose and seek their interests. So if you are interested in one particular thing, go do that. If you're not interested, then there's no use of doing that particular thing. And that's what this national education policy has done. So do whatever you are interested in. We are not forcing you to take some particular type of combination and excel in that particular field. Do something of your interest, come up with good ideas, be creative, and be creative. That is one mantra that everyone has to follow. Because whatever you do, however you do, if you're not creative, if you're not smart, if you don't do smart work, then your hard work doesn't give any yield at all, for sure. So coming up with the next point, education as a means to reform the minds of the youth. To speak about this particular point, maybe we have examples of the terrorists in Afghanistan and Pakistan who are literally 98% of the youths. It's 98% of the youths. So they are not getting the proper education as to what they have to do in their life, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's like go into this particular field, kill some people, do some unwanted stuff, and earn money. That's it. So there's nothing else that they do. So that point focuses mainly on education as a means to reform the minds of the youth. If your mind is reformed to do some particular thing, then maybe like you are into it. So coming up with the last point, maybe education as a media of all comprising developments. So once you want to develop yourself into a better human being, then the only thing that can do is education. So with the help of education, the youth can promote competitive issues and analytical precision and envisioning future scenarios, and decision making skills will improve and whatnot. So education just makes every particular human being just mold himself and become a better human being rather than just being a normal human being. So maybe I can conclude by telling in one sentence that with a proper education maybe imparted to the youth can become productive, scientific oriented, broad minded, and ideal citizens of the society as the society is significantly influenced by this category of people. So it's one main point that I would like to focus on is again, I want to repeat, youths are not useless, but they are useless. So I would like to thank Mr. Goel sir for giving me this opportunity to speak on this particular topic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Youths are not useless, but they are used less, says P. Manoraj Rao. Yes, you are right, but why they are used less? They are not used less. Rather, they are not using, or they are not understanding their own capabilities. Today, with the new technology world, digital world, one can do, and we have seen the examples ourselves. A 12-year-old child is developing an app and doing wonders, earning money. So youth have now the tools with them. If, and you rightly said that if you are creative, yes, if you are creative, then there is no one to use you, or less or more. It is up to you how you want to be used, or how you want to show your creativeness. Thank you very much, Mr. Rao, for giving your views. Now I'd like to go to my chief guest, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, you have heard all the 7 bright youths today, their views. Definitely, we would like to get your concluding remarks about them, your opinion.
Very much again for this opportunity. I think we have to take these youngsters very seriously. I think that's the first thing. And as an educator, as as a citizen, uh, as a person who has some influence on policy, I think it's very important to take. There are some take homes here. So I would quickly say there are 5 take homes for me. They are essentially one. Uh, the youth are expecting them to be connected to the decision making. I think that's a very important thing. And I think as educators, we need to, you know, in all our activities, we need to take youth into confidence. We may not entirely agree with them, but then we need to really talk to them. And when we start doing it, I'm sure that we can have a classroom full of students taking exams, but there's no copying. I think it's possible. I know it is possible, provided we take them into confidence. So in decision making, we need to really, really involve youth, because there's so much that we can know. And it's not just about ideas, it's about engaging and creating trust. And trust really works. So I think that's number one. Second is create a non-judgmental means to engage youth. I think this is very, very important. I mean, one of you said this, one of the youngsters said this. So I think we are not here to judge. And I tell my students, exams are, please, yeah, you can quote me. It's a necessary evil to prevent free riders. It's nothing beyond that. Yeah. So create non-judgmental means to engage youth. And when we say this to students, it doesn't matter how you did, but every day is a fresh day. I'll see you as a fresh person every day. As an educator, we have to do this. We need to learn some new skills also. I'm very clear about this. Third is about actually promoting the very idea of, teachership. So someone said that, one of the young friends here said, yeah, promote teaching. It's very, very important. Unless you know feel empowered, how can we teach? We can only teach to the extent that we know that's important. And the highest reaches of learning can be pursued by the academics. What more freedom can you have? I mean, you do things, you can read all kinds of different great books on the table. You can't do that in, when one is in the industry, for instance. I was in industry myself. So I think it's very, very important point. We want really young people to pursue. And that's why we should have some really dynamic PhD programs and very, very active, school training programs where they can really, really bring their best onto the table. That is the third one. Fourth one, that is make education interesting. 100%. Okay, we learn so much from our children. We learn so much from the students. So use of social media, experimentation. We have to stop saying, the adults in society have to stop saying that they have, low span of attention and all. It's the brain is working faster. So we need to create that kind of, so we need to have those kind of experimentation, social media. Education should be more interesting. And I think a lot of avenues for this, in terms of simulation and so on. We're doing a lot of those things, and a lot of educators are doing a lot of things. Last one is render students to be useful to society. So we have to, while educational environment provides this environment of freedoms, they should also bring in the problems and prospects of the society into the campus and start, solving problems. So it could be dealing with MSMEs, it could be dealing with multinational companies, it could be about the social issues. I think this requires a rethink of bureaucracy also. When I say we, I'm talking about educators, elders, bureaucracy. All these have to come together and start genuinely seeing this as real resources. And for that, we need to be less, what should I say, bureaucratic. We need to be more transparent, because youth expect transparency. They have this idealism. So I think it's very important to really meet them at the level of, where things are transparent, things are really on the table for discussion. So I think these are the 5 lessons that our youngsters are telling us. And I think it requires the cooperation of not just the educators, but also the policymakers, the bureaucracy, and parents also have to be in this. And I really thank you, Mr. Goel ji. It's amazing to have you, bring such youngsters, and it's always a pleasure to be here and to meet all these youngsters from different parts of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran. Pleasure is ours, because the way you have explained today, the motivational, inspirational, these things are required. As many of our youth guests have mentioned, that they have full ideas, they are energetic, creative. Only things they require just a guidance, a proper guidance. If they will have just a proper guidance, I'm sure our youths are going to be not only the future, rather the present. One thing which our chief guest has mentioned about which youth has also mentioned, and he has emphasized about the policy making, decision making in the youth involvement. Yes, I always repeat, unless youth will not come forward for that, it is not possible. But unfortunately in India, I will just give an example. 26% youth were present in the 1952 first parliament in India, which was constituted in 1952. 26% were the MPs below the age of 45. And in this present parliament, we have only 12% youth below 45. So please try to understand your own power. Don't underestimate it. And you just try to come. If you want to participate in the policy making, you have to come and take the leap forward yourself. involve yourself, whether it is a politics, whether it's in the college management, but you have to be positive. If you are a positive person, definitely everybody would like to take you in that field. But if you initially started criticizing, to criticize anyone is very easy, but you must have something to give alternative. If you are not agreeing with one policy, fine, no problem. One has to not agree with all the policies, but then you should have a solution. If I am not agreeing with this new educational policy for this particular reason, then what are your solution? Because after all, if government is coming out with any policy, or the college management comes out or with any policy, they always do with it due deliberations with lots of people. It's not like that one person decide, okay, I want to do this. But if you give the alternate solutions. Always the difference and democratic setup is like this. But what you have mentioned today, yes, it's a very, very valid thing. You all are very creative. You are using social media in a very positive way. And I again appeal to you all that please use the social media positively, even for the vaccination. You know that from 16th of January, the vaccine has started in India. The COVID vaccines started in India. Please be positive. Don't go for the rumors. Go for the medical expert advice only. Don't spread it. Even if you are receiving, don't spread the negative thing. Because today it might be a fun for you, but just think, if one life is lost because of this COVID, it's a very, very big loss. And when we are talking about the humanity, when we are talking of real education, this is the real education. Study yourself. Go through the Lancet, go to those technical papers or the publications, the journals, medical journals, what they say about vaccine, and then only make your opinion. But don't do that. Somebody has forwarded a WhatsApp message and you are forwarding so many died, so many such happening. No, we must, and this is the responsibility of all the youth, everyone, every citizen of India today, to see to it that we will be COVID free, and that will be a real education, in my opinion, to every one of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our chief guest and all the youths. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day a new topic. And tomorrow, our topic for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. is women and spirituality. Yes, the topic is women and spirituality. And our guest panelists are Dr. Rajiv Anand, Senior Psychiatrist and Marriage Counselor, Mumbai; Miss Rashri Daga, Entrepreneur, Mumbai; Miss Shama Nurani, Angel Healer, Mumbai; and Miss Radhika Pai, Chairperson, Vidya Shilp Community Trust, Bengaluru. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference at 10:30 with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, for joining and enlightening, giving your such a valuable views. And thank you all the youth guests who have joined today. And I'm sure not only you, even all those who have participated or who are already participated in our conference, or who are viewing today's program, or who can watch in future also, because these all our programs are available on Media Conference with Lal Goel on the Google search. If you will do, you will find all that from the D-Day 1, that is for 22nd March 2020. It is available. Everything is available, which may enhance. And that is our endeavor from the Gyan, to enhance or give something which we would like to give to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Thanks a lot.